Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Boston and Balling. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut. Spring is finally almost here, which means baseball is right around the corner. I'm super excited for the season. I'm ready for spring, summer, and baseball weather. I don't know about everybody else, but I hope you're all doing well and having a great start to the week. I'm excited to bring you another episode today. I have a really special guest with me. He's actually from Connecticut, like myself, played baseball at UConn, and recently signed with the Red Sox, which is my favorite baseball team, which is one of the biggest reasons why we are here today doing the podcast. So I'm excited to introduce you to him, Matt Donlan. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I appreciate you coming on my show.
Of course, happy to.
Um,
UConn native and a Sox fan.
oh yeah. Like so, you grew up a Sox fan?
Yeah. I grew up a Sox fan my whole life, and made it even sweeter. But yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, it's they're definitely the best baseball team in the world. So that must have been awesome, like for you having been able to sign with like the team that you've always been a fan of since you were younger.
yeah. Midway through the process, an opportunity to play professional baseball was priority number one. But it being the team that I grew up rooting for made it that much cooler for me.
Yeah, I'm sure. So obviously I know, like I said, you grew up in Connecticut, like myself. I actually grew up really close to UConn, like 15 minutes away from UConn. So used to always go to a lot of games and still do for baseball, basketball, football, you name it over there. So big UConn connection here. So growing up, for you, at what point in kind of your baseball journey did you kind of realize that it was something you felt like you kind of want to pursue more seriously and maybe go professional for?
Yeah. I actually didn't start off at UConn. I went to Stonehill College kind of outside
Yeah.
Boston, for 2 years, and then when I was grateful to get the opportunity to play at UConn. Coach Penders and Coach Mack and Coach Horgan and Coach Des over there built a great program that I've followed since I was really young. I knew and they knew I wasn't ready for the stage at UConn right out of high school, and that was okay. When I was in the portal, I knew growing up in Connecticut, being a UConn fan, where I wanted to end up while I was in the portal. And uh, fast forward now, I'm obviously stoked and made that decision. And yeah, so when as I kind of endured that journey, the goal was always play professionally. And UConn was a big stepping stone to make me realize that's a lot more attainable. So I'd say it was always the goal, but never just looking at that. I was trying to get better every time, every place I showed up, and ultimately ended up being the goal. But obviously, the job's not finished yet. But yeah,
Yeah, so that's definitely really cool. And I know UConn obviously has a great baseball program. They're super good at what they do over there too. So I'm sure they really helped prepare you to take that next step.
yeah, no doubt about it. The program over there is it's fantastic, and I think it was a mentally and physically it was huge for me to get on campus and be around coaches and players that I was to help me grow and become a better player in person.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good to get different perspectives from different people too that are around the game to, help you grow and help you improve at your game.
No
Did
doubt.
you
Yeah.
so for you, growing up and everything, obviously with baseball being your passion, who were some of the players that you kind of looked up to when you were younger that were some of your favorites to watch?
Yeah. I mean, you can look at the like immediate history and look at the championship and the World Series teams that the Red Sox have had. Being a catcher, Jason Varitek, obviously, huge role model and just someone who was incredibly fun to watch. As much as I'm a Red Sox fan, I'm a fan of the game. So I followed and follow like all teams, and um, personally, one of my favorite players growing up watching. I don't know particularly why, but Jacoby Ellsbury is one of my favorite players, controlling center field. And I've never played center, never have, never will, but just one of the guys I followed closely.
Yeah, he was also another good one when he was with the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Outfielders are definitely fun to watch because I feel like that's such a hard position to play, like harder than it kind of looks like it is on TV. So to watch outfielders do what they do has always been so interesting to me.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And yeah, obviously Jason Varitek's a classic, just classic Red Sox player who was a really good leader for the team when he was there and just kind of was everything that the Red Sox represented as a player. He was
Yeah,
one of my
there's been a lot of great ones to wear the uniform. So there's so many picks from David Ortiz, Manny Ramirez, the list goes on. But it
classic
was
player.
the teams. I remember the teams too. Just certain teams that just clicked and meshed and had a lot of success in the field.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. That's really cool. I like that a lot. And obviously, growing up a Red Sox fan was, fun for somebody in my generation because of all the recent success that the Red Sox have had from 2004 on. And being able to experience 4 World Series championships in that time is pretty cool. So I definitely feel grateful as a Red Sox fan to be able to have gotten that experience.
Yeah, me as well. I remember being at regular season games growing up, postseason games growing up. Even in college, when I was going to school outside of Boston, I remember going to as many postseason games as I could get to. Just feeling the energy in that building. I mean, in the park and in the city is just it's indescribable. When it's going right, it's one of the cooler things you can even just view.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So for you, what was that process like between when you finished college and when you did sign with the Red Sox? Like, what did that whole process kind of look like?
Yeah, so the process kind of looked like we were fortunate enough to make a deep run into the postseason with UConn. We ended up losing in the Stanford Super Regional out there in Palo Alto. Fortunately, came up short the last game of one game of Omaha, but we flew back and I had such a heavy workload and we decided not. I decided not to play summer ball to kind of test the waters and just prepare for the draft, do some workouts, and kind of give my body a little bit of a break. And the draft came around. I went undrafted through the 20 rounds, and then no more than very shortly after, I signed the free agent deal with the Red Sox, and that was pretty much it. Honestly, there wasn't that much time in between because we made such a deep run, which was good because I didn't have time to sit around and think, and it was kind of just happened pretty fast. As long as least as I remember.
Yeah, that like you said, that's nice for you because you were still focusing on that run anyway with UConn. So for that mindset was probably for you like this is my main focus right now as it is. So the fact that that transition period was seamless and didn't take that long was probably what made it like way less stressful.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we had tons of guys who got drafted and got signed, and we had a lot of guys with aspirations to get drafted and to get signed. But the cool thing about that group last year was that we really just were focused on winning baseball and being together. Because we really enjoyed spending time together, playing as a unit, and that was good because it took some pressure off of how you're going to play too. We were playing for one another, not just for ourselves, and that's when you play your best baseball anyway. But it worked out in a great way where we all meshed and ended up playing better because of each other.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely really important when you have that, team chemistry with the players that you're playing with. And I feel like even at the professional level too, that's so important. Like just having those good locker room vibes, which I feel like, the 2018 Red Sox when they won the World Series, the locker room vibes and what it seemed like that team had with each other was so special, which I feel like was a big reason for them to be successful that year because that team just had something really special with that bond.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously wasn't there, so I can't speak on behalf of that that clubhouse vibe, but you can tell watching them that they love playing the game with each other and they love playing the game in general, and that's just infectious when you're out there. And obviously they had some success, so it worked. The teams that I've been a part of that have had the most fun and blended the most generally have had the most success. So definitely think that's important.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. What was kind of your biggest inspiration to start playing baseball at a young age?
I don't really know. I mean, I as long as I can remember, I've played baseball. I had two older brothers that played baseball
Oh,
all
nice.
throughout their childhood, and so the early days like was just really me, them, my dad, my friends, just messing around in the side yard and playing wiffle ball and playing baseball, and then eventually turned into and it was I was the beneficiary of having two older brothers because I was always getting roughed up and playing against them and their friends. So I was always playing against guys that were older, and I think that that helped me kind of at least learn to love it and learn to do it, and it just continued on and throughout throughout little league and middle school. I always enjoyed it more than any other sport that I was playing. I played other sports growing up,
Oh,
but when I turned to specialize technically in baseball in college is when I really honed in on like loving just baseball and just preparing for baseball, which I think was a positive for me.
yeah, I feel like when you get to the point where you want to be more serious about a sport, it's good to be able to focus on that one sport more so than the others. So it probably eventually got to the point where you just weren't playing anything else, I would guess.
Yeah, I mean we're in the Northeast, and so I mean there's not a lot of baseball going on in the winter. Nowadays we got the nice facilities up there, and it makes it possible. But I didn't touch baseball in the winter when I was younger. Nowadays you see it all the time, but I was playing basketball all winter, and when baseball season came around, I played baseball. You know, that's just kind of what we did, and
Yeah.
I think it was great because I it helped me in all facets of all sports.
Yeah, where are you gonna go in Connecticut to play baseball in the
Right?
when
Yeah,
the
it's a little
at
cold.
that point? Yeah, but yeah, now they have, like, the indoor facilities and everything, which is good, but,
Yeah,
it definitely, when we were younger, definitely was probably not the case. So, but, no, I think that's really cool. That's definitely awesome. Yeah, because obviously so being a catcher is definitely one of the hardest positions to play in baseball. There's so much that you're focusing on during a game. So what would you say is the hardest thing about being a catcher?
hardest thing about being a catcher. That's a tough question. Uh, uh, I mean, it's certainly physically demanding. Um, there's maybe the hardest part, honestly, is I don't know if it's the hardest part, but your body takes more of a beating than anybody else on the field. So generally, from people that I've played with and been on catching staffs with, your body doesn't feel as good as maybe some other bodies after the game in the morning before the game. But when the game turns on, everything kind of goes away, and I feel good. So I just think it's given every like uh, catchers have to give mentally and physically every single pitch of the game their attention 100% of the time. And I think that's probably the toughest part is if you're able to do that, you have a lot of success. If you take one off, everybody can see, you're a catcher back there. It's important for me to at least like everybody's looking at you on the field. There's 8 guys looking at you, and you're looking at 8 guys. So all the whole entire team's looking at you. Your body language matters. Your presence matters. It's infectious as you're the one everybody's looking at. You kind of set the tone for the rest of the team. I think that's one of the most difficult things, but one of the things that I pride myself on doing. No matter what's going on, you can control that. And I say that's probably it.
Yeah, it's always interesting just how focused catchers really are and just how much they have to be aware of that's going on during a game. And just being able to know what your pitcher should throw at all times is definitely interesting to be able to see and watch.
Yeah, I mean, baseball is very much so a mental game, and catching probably the most demanding mental position as well. I mean, you need to be aware of what everybody has to do. You need to be in control of the pitcher and working for him, and but I think that's the fun part of it for me. You can that doesn't have a bad day. You can't mentally you can't have a bad day, which physically you can't control sometimes, but can always be aware of that and be uh, dedicated to that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So if you have a pitcher who, might be struggling at the plate or just not having his best outing that day, because I feel like obviously every pitcher is gonna have bad days where they're just not pitching well. And then a lot of times, you'll see the catcher go out there to the mound to talk to them. Like, what do you usually say to the pitcher if they're in that situation to kind of get them to, settle down?
Uh, Another tough question. I think it's different for every guy, and I think it's important why, as a catcher, you need to know your pitchers as people too. For example, a guy he doesn't mind using his name, but Austin Peterson is our Friday guy at UConn. I knew that when he's having a bad day or he's not doing his thing, I need to handle him way differently than somebody else because he's more of a fiery guy. He doesn't want to hear it as much from me as much as I think he should. I think I should go out there. It's good for me to understand that it's not going to do anything for him. So I would be different with those guys, maybe a little less like structured, less out there, more of a quick verbal thing, as opposed to other guys. Sometimes you go out there and just tell them to settle down. Nothing crazy goes on out there, but just giving a guy a deep breath sometimes, give him a chance to grab his breath, understand what's going on in the situation, and then remind him of that. Just there's a lot going on out there. It's our job to kind of help him with that. So I think it differs every guy, but some guys need something, some needs the other. So yeah.
It's always interesting to me when I'm watching a game because I'm like I wonder what they're actually saying right now. Like what's
Yeah.
the conversation that's going on right now out there? So I've always been kind of curious, like what takes place. Because you'll see the catcher go out there and then they'll talk for a little and then he'll go back and I'm like, well, I don't know what he just said, but hopefully whatever it is, it gets him to pitch better
Yeah,
because
that's the
we need
goal.
that.
Right.
Yeah, so then obviously because catchers are big leaders on the field for their team. Um, but so then from like the hitting side, what do you find is kind of the hardest part about hitting? Because obviously there's like you don't really know like what pitch is going to be thrown, and it's so little time that you have to be able to have to decide if you want to swing at that pitch or not. So like when you're at the plate hitting, like what do you kind of find is like the hardest thing about that?
Oh yeah, I mean hitting's really hard. There's a lot of pitchers at every level that have really good stuff, really good velocity, and hitting's hard to begin with. So I think the most not the most difficult thing, but the thing that helps you combat that the most is just having a plan when you get up there. Whether it's pitch tendency or where he likes to throw, what pitches like to throw in certain counts. Having a plan and taking your swing is really the simple stuff that you resort back to. Hitting's hard, so you want to keep it as simple as possible. It's kind of like what I and some guys like to think about.
Yeah, sometimes I'll think about it as like, like if you look at players' batting averages and it's like, if you're batting 300, that's considered really good. But it's like just thinking about like just how few times hitters actually really make contact relative to when they don't is kind of crazy because that's just how hard hitting actually is. Because like with how fast these pitchers throw, it's like how can people decide that quickly if they're going to swing at that pitch or not? You know?
Yeah, some people say it's one of the harder things to do in sports, and I would have to. It's it's a lot of fun, but it's definitely a challenge up there.
Yeah, when people like when I'm watching Red Sox games with friends or something, they'll be like, "Why didn't he swing at that pitch? Like that was a strike." And I'm like, "Well, again, like the ball was thrown at like 100 miles an hour, so he didn't really have a lot of time to decide if he feels like he should swing or not. So he probably like thought it was going to be, outside the zone or something maybe."
Yeah, for sure.
It's so interesting watching hitters to me because I'm like, this is I can't even imagine like how hard this actually is if you're in the position of
Yeah.
doing it. So how do you kind of like mentally prepare yourself for games? Like what's kind of the process for you like before a game when you're kind of getting ready to play that day?
Uh, I mean, nowadays we have structure where we get to the club has a certain time. We have lift certain times and pregame, catching pens, whatever it is, throwing, conditioning, hitting. So there's a pretty strict regimen that we have leading up to the game. But for me, pregame, I'm not a guy who needs to like kind of like jack myself up and get super energized for the game. I'm very excited to play and I have a lot of energy. So it's more of just kind of staying in that healthy medium and getting ready to go, not too up, not too down. Figuring out on the defensive side, just understanding who I'll be pitching or who I'll be catching tonight, what lineup we'll be facing, make sure I'm well versed and briefed on all of that and ready to have a game plan. I attack every hitter up and down the lineup. And that's probably, I'm not very superstitious. I have a regimen, I have a routine, but I don't like tying my shoes a certain way. Don't do it a certain amount of times. I know.
Some
I'll do
people
what
do.
works for me. Yeah, I know.
Some people are definitely like that. I feel like where they're like, I need to wear like this hat to the ballpark today, or else I'm like not going to have a good game or something like that.
Yeah.
It's really
Makes you.
interesting.
I mean, yeah. I eat certain things and drink certain things, just feel good and stay hydrated for the game, but it's not a certain thing every day or anything.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, because it is, I mean, baseball games are long and it's just the season is pretty long, like especially once you do get to the professional level and everything. And it can be tough, like especially like what you were talking about with your run with UConn when you guys went on that deep run. I mean, it gets to be a long season. So how as a team do you kind of stay focused mentally throughout that whole run to be able to be successful as a team?
You mean like throughout that run we made?
Yeah, like just like generally, but like specifically in that type of situation when you're making a big run like that and it's a lot of games and it ends up being a pretty long season.
Yeah. I mean, specifically with that run, and I also think it relates to whenever you're playing baseball at all. But I mean, we just genuinely love playing the game, and we just want to show up to the field the next day. So it wasn't like we were battling fatigue and it was like a draining season. We were doing anything we could to fight to continue to play. That's what we were fighting for, the right to continue to play together, continue to play the game. And I love baseball. I know the guys do. I know everybody playing professional baseball generally loves baseball. So it's not necessarily how are we going to get through this? It was like, I want to keep playing. I want to keep playing baseball. I want to be able to show up the next day and keep playing when you're making a run. And that's kind of what we thought about and processed.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I would hope if you want to play baseball at the professional level that you love playing the game. That'd be kind of sad
Yeah.
if you don't. But
Right.
yeah, that's why it seems like it's just everybody just seems to enjoy it out there when they are playing, and just even getting the opportunity to play at that level. Because I mean, like you mentioned, even you alluded to this before, it's a long process. Even like when you either get drafted or you sign with a team to work your way up through the system to be able to even get to the professional level. Like I feel like that could take kind of a while for people. And so that's why I've always found baseball to be so interesting because it's tougher than other sports when it comes to like there's so many levels you have to get through before you get to, the major league level.
Yeah. I just touched on what you said before. I mean, like, yes, but that's kind of like, you understand kind of what you're getting into. And like, we prepared our bodies for a long season. So we're able to continue to play. That's kind of what I think. I mean, yes, just, necessarily take a long time if you want to like label that to get up to the bigs. But if in this setting I personally don't find a ton of value in like continue to look off in the distance. Just show up, get better every day, and take care of your business and go about your work in a manner in which you're going to get better. And that's kind of all you can do, and the rest will take care of itself. Not necessarily in a rush, but committed to getting better every day is going to be the fastest way to get there. So
Yeah. What do you do during the off season to kind of keep up with everything? Because obviously I can imagine it would be hard when you're not in a game situation and you're not facing like live pitching as a hitter, or like you're not having pitchers throw to you like legitimately as a catcher. So how do you kind of maintain everything during the off season?
Yeah, so my first off season, this past off season, I spent back in Connecticut. I trained at ATP in Stanford. So there's a bunch of guys that play professional baseball there, catching high level pitchers, throughout the majority of the off season. So could have a couple of breaks, not catching guys, and then I actually hit with um, Jason Leftwitz in Rye, New York, and he we have a good plan on. We'd love to get at bats in the off season, but they're not that easy to come by. But he does a great job of preparing me for um, what, the best we can in terms of machine work and drill work and analytics, the whole shebang. Not important, but like that combined with I got up to UConn and caught some high level pitchers and got some at bats there. So it's definitely a challenge, especially in the Northeast. But um, there's a lot of ways to get better and a lot of ways to be productive without getting live at bats, and that's kind of um, the goal this offseason to do.
Yeah, it's definitely tough in the off season when you're not, with your teammates and you're not like actively being able to play with them. So I can imagine it can be sometimes tough for players to kind of be able to maintain everything. And even like I think about pitchers too, when I'm like, they can't like with when it comes to like being able to pitch during the off season. Like I know they tend to take a little bit more time off than other people just to rest their throwing arms and everything, but still like I can't imagine like having to take that time off and then go back and then have to try to um pick right up from where you were when you have like that break. So it's definitely, I'm sure it's probably tough, but I would imagine everybody's like plan kind of looks different until they get to the point where they're back to training with everybody else again.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody's looks different. I mean, the organization that you're with will help you like, have a plan for the offseason. You're not just going there aimlessly. And I think it's important to surround yourself with professional baseball players and guys that are getting better every day. At least for me, it was whatever position that may be, pitcher, catcher, position player, hitting with, throwing with, lifting with, training with, whoever it may be. I think that's important to be surrounded with guys on a similar mission because you can always learn from those guys too. It's not you can't just learn from one place. There's a lot of different ways you can get better and learn and bounce ideas off each other, get better, make friends. The whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's why it's good to play with different people like that and see the way that they approach the game too, because I feel like that's just going to help people get better is by being able to get advice from others or just see the way that other people approach the game too, because it's just good to get those different perspectives. That kind of goes for, anything in life that you're doing. Just
For
getting
sure,
those
yeah.
different perspectives from other people.
Yeah.
So who would you say kind of like if you thinking back to your whole baseball journey up to this point, do you have like a coach or coaches that were kind of the most influential in terms of your progress and helping you get to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a handful of coaches. I don't really want to leave anybody out, but I mean, there's a handful of coaches off the top of my mind. I mean, every single coach at UConn, Des, Penders, Horgan, and Mac, um, had pretty good relationships with all of them on and off the field, and have been integral to me being where I am today. I still keep in touch with all of them. Saw them last weekend. It was them their relationship the relationship that we built with them for me was hugely important because I developed so much as a player in person there that I felt like the investment in them and the investment they put in me and all of the players in the program is just a big reason why we have so much success up there in stores. And the same, I know my friends can share the similar uh, experiences through it. And then I think, I mean, maybe the most influential person on my career was one of my brother's friends, Ryder McConey, who was playing college baseball, William & Mary, professional baseball um, throughout my career. Hit with me, I don't know how many hundreds of hours out of the goodness of his heart, and dedicate himself to really helping me become who I am in the weight room and in the batter's box. And that mentorship that he gave to me is just remarkable and has been huge for me. And we continue to talk every single day now that I could stop. But it was huge for me, and I'm definitely very appreciative of him for that. And yeah, those are the guys that come to mind. I've played for great coaches though, everywhere, summer. But yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely good when you can look back on it and be like, there were so many different people that helped me get to where I am because each of them probably like helped you in different ways and provided you with, feedback and advice that you could take with you when you move on to the next level of, wherever you were at the time.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, every relationship is different, and what they had to offer was different. But I mean, the common theme was all of them were incredibly invested in me as a person and player, and believed in where we were headed. And that's important right there. The belief in that is super important. But um, yeah, it was definitely very important.
For sure. Yeah. So obviously, with like the season like really right around the corner in terms of it's starting up, which is really exciting. What would you say are like your biggest goals for this upcoming season?
Oh yeah, it's my first pro season, first full
Yeah.
pro season, I should say. And goal wise, I mean, like I said, I don't really shoot for making up certain ranks at certain dates and certain times. I'm generally just committed to getting better every single day and being as like growing as much as I can as a player throughout the season. I mean, there's gonna be ups and downs, but staying committed to who I am as a player and being open to learning from every level I'm at, every coach and player level that I'm at, and taking that into every single day is my ultimate goal to become the best player I can this season. And of course, go as high as you can, but not really focused on necessarily that as much as I am getting better throughout the day and competing.
Yeah, that it's like obviously you have that bigger goal in mind for the future, but you can't really look too far ahead at all of that. It's more just like you have to kind of focus on being the best you can be with where you're at, because then I feel like everything else will kind of come with that naturally. Like if you continue to improve, you'll be able to naturally move up to the next level, you know, once you continue to just kind of grow and get better as a player.
Right? Yeah. I mean, if you're not trying to become the best player you can be and be in the bigs, probably not the game for you. But if you are, you're gonna want to get better every day, and that's how you do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if you had like a piece of advice that you could give to, kids who are kind of like hoping to make it to that level eventually and, they watch all these players and they look up to certain players that are at the professional level, like if you could give a kid advice or even like a younger version of yourself advice on how to get there and how to, get yourself into a professional organization, like what would that be?
Yeah. That's a loaded question. I'd
Yeah,
probably
sorry.
say no worries. I mean, piece of advice I give to myself, my younger self. I mean, trust the work. Trust the work you're putting in. It's going to pay off. But I think the important thing is to work hard. Not necessarily everybody's gonna make it to play professional baseball, but I think it's really cool and important. Not necessarily important, but if you really want to play professional baseball and be the best player you can, is work to be the best player that you can, and that's going to be um, far more important in your career and life than just pushing to get to the goal. The beauty is going to be found in like the grind of it and getting there, because
Yeah,
it doesn't go away when you make it. You continue to do it. Doesn't stop.
yeah, like your mindset now is still the same as it was back then because obviously now it's like you got signed by your favorite team from when you were growing up, but it's like there's still so much more that, you can do with that. And I would imagine even players who are at the major league level, obviously, like still probably have that same mindset of like, I just need to continue to improve my game every day and just, prove myself and go out there and perform every day. That mentality is probably never going to change.
Yeah, I mean, I'm incredibly grateful, and I know people are incredibly grateful to be fortunate enough and to have earned the opportunity to play professionally, especially for such an incredible organization like the Boston Red Sox. But the mentality doesn't really change. Just still showing up every day and just grinding and getting better. And when you're in the bigs, I've never made it there, so I can't speak on behalf of it. But from what I understand and what I've learned from people that have been there is that once you get there, you still got to work just as hard to stay there as you were working to get there. And that's a cool part of it,
Yeah, it's tough for players because, like, when you're at that level, there's so many people watching you. So if you're not performing, then that's tough because you're just not going to make it very far if you don't. So it's almost like the pressure becomes more and more at that point because it's like
Yeah.
you've already established yourself enough to be there, but it might be even harder to be constantly proving yourself to stay there. Because obviously, if you look at players like David Ortiz or Jason Varitek, like any of the players that we mentioned before, like they were constantly going out there and showing that they were one of the best in the game. And that's why they were as successful as they were. So there's just so much that goes into once you do get there, like it might even be harder at that point to be able to just constantly show that you deserve to stay there and stay on a team, especially like the Red Sox, like you said, with how, historic of a franchise it is and just how dedicated of a fan base they have and just how just reputable of an organization it is to be there,
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is pressure. There's pressures everywhere, but I mean that's the cool part, It's
Yeah.
pretty cool to have that type of impact, especially doing it well, So looking forward to it.
It is, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it's definitely pretty cool. Yeah, well, I definitely appreciate you hopping on the show with me. I think this was, was great to hear a little bit more about your journey and how you got to where you are. Hopefully, we eventually see you at Fenway one day.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
The
Thanks for
best
having me on.
the best ballpark in baseball. a
That's right.
totally non-biased statement that I just made, but I do love
Yeah.
Fenway just for multiple reasons, but also because it's where the Red Sox play. So yeah, I definitely wish you the best of luck with your career and everything, and I appreciate you hopping on the show with me.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And thanks again, everybody, for tuning into the show. As always, I really appreciate the support constantly for my show. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of the week, and I will catch you all next time. Have a good night, everybody.